Okay, moving on swiftly with this inspection, we'll have a look at the interior. The rear, well, that could be a shock, and we can see there's a cylinder head laying on the floor. This could give an indication that the owner thought there might have been a cylinder head problem. Interior has been hard worked, lined out, and this gives an indication of what this vehicle used to do. There's a hatch in the roof, which is homemade, and you can see by this, it's actually a shooting platform. The wiring, well, there's a little bit left to be desired. You can see by here something's been lashed in, and this is the trailer tow socket, so it would have done some towing work. Going back to the junction box, you can see this has been hurriedly lashed in, and there's chance of wiring being chafed on this point. The quality of wiring has been continued into, well, just about everywhere. You can see the modern up-to-date stereo system they fitted. But we're generally getting the feel of the interior, and that is in need of attention. Not too much of a concern, because as you know, these interiors haven't changed much, so we can fit things in that make them feel much better. It hasn't been cared for, and you can see up on the roof that there are studs, wiring hanging down, but generally it's not too bad. That must have had a flashing beacon on that. The seats are torn. These can be replaced quite easily. Much depends what you want out of a Land Rover, but the Spartanness of how it's laid out lays a blank canvas for you to write on it exactly how you want the vehicle to be. Later, when we have a look at Mario's project, we'll see simple ways to make it comfortable. Looking at the engine bay, we have a 300 TDI engine, which could be out of a Discovery or a Defender. It's always favourable to find something like this in a vehicle, and if it's been converted properly, it's good. I'm going to start off by looking at the power steering fluid level, which is absent there. And what we'll see, it's actually drained onto here, which is your panhard rod. So the drop arm here is also covered in fluid. Looking after where the arrow is, it's obvious that the power steering box is leaking. Security of hoses, intercooler hoses, radiator hoses are very important, and with a modification you need to see how it's been put in. There could be restrictions on cooling or even the intercooler hosing. This one here has been thrown together and the wiring is not very good. We have a specialist filter here which is chafing on the filter housing, and the hosing here, which comes from the cyclone unit, you can see it's complete to atmosphere. The EGR valve is disconnected, however it's still blowing, and it's a bit of a mess, and it's very apparent straight away that this hasn't been put together very well. I'm also checking the oil for the level, and I'll have a little sniff to see how carbon filled the oil is. You can smell, it smells rank. Okay, I'll do that before starting the engine just in case we have any issues. Cooling level is important too, and the way the radiator cap is, it's got corrosion on it. There's nothing in here, and it's had a leak at some point. Looking down at the radiator, we have a disconnected oil cooler. That's not actually there at all. The radiator core isn't in bad condition, to be honest with you, and it's not full of mud. There's a big gap in here because it has no cooling fan. It's electric instead, which has been thrown together. What we see here is the oil cooler pipes have actually been connected together, or bypassed as it were, so it's not running into the oil cooler at all. There's also evidence of quite a big oil leak. Now the top of the engine's covered in oil, but look at this. From looking underneath we can see where the oil's dripping from, and rather than the rear main seal, it looks like it's coming from the rocker cover gasket. Front of the engine as well, how the belts are put together and if there's anything extra special been driven on it. Piping here, there's a collar inside there. So altogether, what do you think? That's not very well put together, and it's in a bit of a state. It should look something like this, with a busy engine bay that's packed out. Continuing under the bonnet, with the steering you have a couple of knuckle joints, which is the steering shaft. One's on the steering column and the other one on the box. It's worth checking these knuckles to make sure they're all right and in good condition. So we'll give this a quick check, see what condition it's in. If you wiggle them, you can see the play that's in the joints, if there is any. There shouldn't be any present at all. Fluids like brake fluid are also very important to check, along with the clutch fluid, which is over there where the arrow is pointing. So we've checked the fluid and made sure that the levels are right before we start the engine. And in this case, nothing. Dead as a dodo. The lights are on the dashboard, but nothing. So we've either got a flat battery or an electrical fault. As it happens, Mario happens to have a couple of spare batteries, and that's how much it took to get these going. A jump pack and a spare battery. Something you'd expect if the vehicle had been standing a long time. Okay, so it's all exciting. The engine's running, and this is where your ears come in really useful. This starts on the flick of a key the second time. Now if you can hear this, it's actually got a blow somewhere on the exhaust manifold side. And it's tick, 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 ticking away. Now this is possibly cracked manifold, we don't know. Also looking at the way the pulleys run. We're checking to see if the pulleys run in line. And I'm going to use my feet, my ears, and see how well it revs up. Alright, so we're all right there. I'm also checking the vacuum build-up in the brake servo. And you should know this is part of the driving test now. A visual check of smoke would be advisable. I'm also checking the clutch operation and the operation of the gear stick. Alright, the springs which bring the gear stick back to the centre for selection is quite important here. This one happens to be okay, and I'm also checking clunking or the take-up of drive is. This is very, very important, and I've got a clunk on this one. It's a pity I can't take this out on the open road. However, I did feel how heavy the steering is. This is only a tyre kicking inspection and not a full service inspection, so we're building up a picture of the vehicle. In our next episode we'll be inspecting the underneath, the running gear and all the stuff we've left till last, and we'll also find out what the clunking noise is. So until then, stay tuned.